At the end of the day, your brand is what people say about you.
Getting initial traction and then just doubling down on that.
When people purchase your products, they're saying something very specific about themselves.
Welcome to On the Fly.
Welcome to episode 5 of On the Fly. Today I was so lucky to be joined by Caleb Ulffers of Haven Athletic. As a keen CrossFitter, Caleb noticed that regular gym bags just weren't equipped to keep his equipment organised properly. So he built a product that did. Haven's bags are now soaring in popularity and they're sported by many well-known athletes. It's still early days for Caleb and Haven. We talked about how he got to this point and how Haven Athletic plans to expand on its success to date. Enjoy.
Caleb from Haven Athletic, welcome to the show. Really happy to have you here all the way from the US. Can you give a brief intro into your brand and yourself, of course, and how the idea came about?
Yeah, for sure. We run Haven Athletic. We make organized gym bags for serious and high performance athletes. And real short, the idea came to us in 2016. We were in the gym digging for gear, frustrated we couldn't find it, kind of messing up our whole workout, messing up with the flow, and thought that there has to be something better. We couldn't find anything better, and so we started building it ourselves.
And I imagine that getting this perfect bag was a bit of a challenge. You had to go a lot of back and forth with manufacturers, but there came a stage after I don't know how many years, maybe two years, where you stumbled upon the exact kind of prototype that you wanted. Is that right? There was a kind of big time period there of design.
Yeah, big time period of trying to figure it out. We come from software and tech and marketing and that whole world. And so getting into physical product development was very new for us. And we explored any and every channel trying to figure it out. And, kind of the hard work begets luck. And we worked hard enough and we just didn't give up and eventually kind of got lucky and made the right connections and found our factory. And we had a couple of samples before that. They were pretty rough and just really couldn't find a solid partner to make it really well and then be willing to keep working with us on it. And so, eventually found someone that would and went off to the races from there.
I know from listening to previous podcasts with you that there is a longer and very interesting story about that whole process. But I'm trying to keep this particular episode from the point where you, after many years of prototyping and making sure that you had the product absolutely perfect, and then you guys had your first batch of bags. I'm just curious, what's the first move there? You think you've got this product that can really make the lives easier of an industry that you were a part of, being very into CrossFit and stuff. So you've got the idea, it's going to work. What's that first kind of move to penetrate that target market?
Yeah, so we, coming from the tech world, lean startup is a really popular concept. You could think of it as that, or you could think of it as design thinking, but essentially being really close to the customer, being really close to the person who you think is going to buy it and working with them to develop the product and make sure it's actually solving the problem. And I think that's a lot of products don't do a great job of that. They think of an idea and then they kind of create a sort of Band-Aid-ish type of solution. And it doesn't actually solve the problem. It sort of makes it a little bit better, but it's not great. And then you kind of see that follow along with the sales and the trajectory of the company. And you're like, yeah, sure, maybe you can build something decent, but you'll never build something incredible off of that. And we looked at solving all of those problems. And so when it came time to start selling the bag, it was just an evolution of that lean startup mindset, which is okay, cool. Will people give us money for it? So we had the first sample in our hands in December of 2019 or so. And 2020, we launched our first pre-sale. And that was the step of will people put money behind it? People have said they hate their bag. People have said they like what we're doing. We feel confident about it. But now it's put it on the table. Will people actually buy it? And they did. And then they bought it during some of the COVID lockdown stuff that was going on during March of 2020. And then we fulfilled those orders and then we hit the ground running for 21. And we've been off to the races ever since. And kind of more specifically, as far as targeting that market, the pre-sale was just running some ads, seeing if anyone would buy it. And then since then, it's been very intentional to target CrossFitters. As a CrossFitter myself, looking at that demographic, typically has $500 worth of gear, 2+ pairs of shoes, a bunch of different items that make all of the things that you do more impactful in the gym. And so we're like, this makes a lot of sense. And let's use this in our imagery. Let's use this in like influencers that we're sampling it to. Let's use this in the language. You can't say CrossFit because they have trademarks and licensing unless you're an official partner or you're working with them in some regard. You can't be like, we're the CrossFit bag. You have to be like, we're a bag for functional movement, for high intensity interval training, things along those lines. And so early on, we knew that we needed to target them in a very specific way. And we had worked with some partners who were like, okay, yeah, it's like a gym bag. We should target gym goers. And I'm like, no, absolutely not. Because they're wildly different things. Looking at like someone who does CrossFit or something similar to that versus someone who just goes to the gym. Someone who's just going to the gym might have 2 or 3 items, if that. Or they might have a change of clothes if that's what they're doing. But oftentimes a regular gym has lockers, and our bag, our duffel bag that we started with, does not really fit in most lockers. And so it was just kind of like looking at it holistically as we got started, saying everything about this bag is geared towards a certain type of person, and that person makes a lot of sense. And if you don't keep focusing on that person for the solution we created for them, it starts to break down. And so like while we tested that market for a little bit with like regular gym goers, we saw an increased rate of returns. And when we killed those ads and we kept our focus in CrossFit and high intensity and that style of training, we saw our return rate go from like 10% down to like 4%, because it made sense. Like people got the product and they're like, hell yeah, I love this. Not this is big and weird and awkward, and what do you do with all of this room? So we kept a pretty, like I said, we tested a bit, but then we just kept and have kept since a very focused marketing effort towards that type of person.
So the ad creative that you were running at that time, it started out being quite broad and was targeting like anybody who was active or going to the gym, but then you realized that you really had to filter down and change that creative. Really, was it just to show like, people with skipping ropes in their hand, or like stuff that kind of goes hand in hand with CrossFit? That was the tactic.
Yeah, essentially it was a little bit more of like a mid, like we started pretty focused. And then as we started to grow, we were like, maybe we need to put more money into expanding. Yeah. Which really like, I never felt strongly about it, but we had a couple agencies early on that really wanted to push into that. And I was like, I don't think so, but you know what? Data will tell us, like, maybe I'm missing the mark here, having this like real intense focus. So like, let's do it. And then what we found was like, it wasn't good. And so we reverted back. And so that's where we're at right now.
And at that time, it sounds like, was this Facebook advertising? Is that where you were finding most of your customers?
Yeah, for sure. We've been doing Facebook advertising since the beginning. That's worked really well for us.
Okay, so was there any other channels that you were using at the start when you were launching? I know I've read a bit about how you guys were very keen to get there was one big CrossFitter, I think it was a female CrossFitter, that had a big impact on the business in the early days. Were you just kind of tunnel visioned on the Facebook ads, or did you have like a number of different channels that you wanted to explore at the start when you were trying to get the word out about Haven?
We wanted to explore some, but being bootstrapped, which basically means cash strapped, you don't have the luxury to kind of go explore those channels. And honestly, you shouldn't. Like, I love to reference like Nick Sharma and people like that who have written in newsletters recently about how you can still build a $50 million company on Facebook and you don't need to go explore all these other channels. Like, just get really, really good at one channel. And we've explored a few, and like, there's some that I wouldn't say that we're like actively pursuing. Like, we work with influencers, but it's not a strategy for us right now where it's like, we're sending out several products a week. We're paying several influencers. We're getting loads of UGC. Like, we send out maybe one a week to an influencer based on like, they reached out to us, they have a huge following, and they're willing to trade a bag for a reel that we could use on ads. So like, I wouldn't say like we're really in that channel. It's just kind of like, it's opportunistic, where it'd be like, it would be dumb to not send this person a free product. So we mostly focus on Facebook ads. We do Google ads, of course. And that's like, it's tough with the attribution, everything going on there. But, between the two, we have a really good overall positive MER. Like, Google is significantly higher than Facebook, but I think in general, what happens is like, you see a lot of ads on Facebook, it's in your mind. And then when it comes time to purchase it, you go Google it, Haven bag, organized bag, gym bag, and then you're reminded by Haven, you click it and then you buy it. So Google shows way higher than Facebook, but I think without Facebook, we would have a very small impact on Google.
So as you know, that I actually have one of your bags, and I believe I'm one of the first people in Ireland to have it, if not the only person in Ireland to have it. One of them.
Yeah, I think probably the only. Yeah.
The only, brilliant. So I've already told a lot of my friends about it, who would be interested in something like this. Given the kind of the niche and the novelty of the bag and the special function of it, I imagine that you don't have I mean, you're obviously quite dependent on Facebook advertising, Google advertising, but I imagine there's a growing kind of organic presence driven by kind of word of mouth. There tends to happen with very like kind of useful products like this.
Yeah. Word of mouth has been huge for us, like getting the product, especially. It's another thing that works well about CrossFit gyms and that style of training is you've got a bunch of intense people in the same location doing the same thing every single day. And so whether that's CrossFit or whether that's like a group of runners or something similar, like a group of athletes in another sport, like finding those communities that are together and sharing about what they're doing. Like, hey, nice pair of shoes. Where'd you get that? Oh, it's this new company. They make these. Or like, did you get that new pair of Metcons? Or like, have you used that new RX Smart Gear jump rope? Or like, whatever it is, it's like, I've been a part of this community for 8 or so years, and it's been the same. But even before I had Haven and we started this whole thing, and you talk to your friends about what products they're using, or they just got the newest or the latest thing, or whatever it is. And so it's has some like natural virality built in. Also, a lot of like skepticism. Some people like to play, like consider it playing the CrossFit card or whatever, and it's like that's not how this community works. You can't just plop down and be like, we're CrossFit. We're like using this as a channel. It's like, no, we are inherently CrossFit, and like brands that have done well in CrossFit, like you kind of have to like prove yourself. Like, are you actually a part of this community, or are you just trying to like tap this as a channel? Like it doesn't work that way. You have to be like authentic. And if you are authentic, it can reward you in really huge ways, the way a lot of companies have kind of built in CrossFit.
Yeah, I'm kind of a bit of a noob CrossFitter, and I just copy whatever the best guy in the gym has. So, so I have the Metcons that you said, very easily influenced. I want to talk about. So you're at a stage now. It's how many employees do you have? I believe it's still quite a small team.
Yeah, so I have 2 co-founders. One of them works part-time. One of them is working full-time with me. So I went full-time in November of 2021, and then my co-founder just joined a couple of months ago. So it's been largely a one person, a little bit of extra help effort, and now it's about a 2-person effort. And we're looking to add a few more people on this year.
What's kind of the main focus now this year? Because I can see your personal presence on Twitter is actually it's always on my feed. So I feel like you're kind of building an almost a personal brand there to represent Haven. I'm starting to see a lot more of the brand, even from Ireland, like within those like kind of like D2C communities. What's kind of like your plan now for the rest of the year?
Yeah, we want to. There's just a lot of opportunities. So we want to fine tune our marketing across the board. It's like digging into like our website conversion rate and things like that, and like increasing our quality of ads, our testing of ads. Same with landing pages. There's just a lot of opportunity there where we haven't had the capacity to really pursue them. Beyond that, like there's a lot of partnerships on deck, both that have been proposed to us, some that are in progress, and to activate on those partnerships, which can be really huge for us. Bringing on some people to help us close those and then like really run with them and like make the most of those opportunities with some really big international brands. And there's some that we've even just put on hold because we know we don't have that capacity yet. Beyond that, it's adding in some products. A lot of opportunity there between other organized products and just like expanding the line. So like we have these 2 products, the backpack and the duffel in 2 sizes, but they are a higher priced item. And so it takes people a little bit of consideration to finally make that purchase. But if we can add in something a little bit more affordable, it's kind of a little bit more top of funnel, basically like once people get their hands on the product, they're 100% convinced. Like they're like, okay, Haven is no bullshit. This is actual quality. They care about what they're doing. Which like what is part of why we put our heart and soul into these products. Like we don't mess around with like cheap off the shelf, anything along those lines. Like there's some other really big, companies out there, maybe built for certain types of people, that it's really just like an off the shelf solution. They went to a factory and they're like, they make that bag, make us a bunch of that. We'll stamp our logo on it and then we'll sell it to people. And it's not really a great product. It's not really a great solution for the industry. And we see that across the board, especially in the bag world, which is partly why, a lot of companies focused on athletic wear and athleisure and kind of like these like sexier industries and opportunities, but like have just forgotten about bags. And so that is our white space, is like, okay, cool. You guys don't want to work with bags? Like, that's fine. We'll take the ugly kid on the block and we'll make it incredible.
Yeah, I genuinely really admired a little snippet from a podcast that I heard with you before, where you had got samples back, and I believe that the inserts that were separating in the inside of the bag were like Velcro removable, and that would have been kind of a perfect point for you to just go, come on, like we've come this far, we'll just do it this way. I'm not bothered going back and getting a redesign. Look, I've come this far. But when you went into detail about how Velcro wouldn't work, because you've got these guys in CrossFit and they're just throwing like loads of different t-shirts and shorts and pulling stuff out and they're changing clothes, eventually it's going to rip their clothes, or it's going to like rip the inserts out and it's going to be covered in fluff and the Velcro wouldn't work. And I just kind of admired like that level of detail and that thought into it. Now I'd already bought your bag, so it didn't affect my buying decision, but when I got the bag, I could see that it had been like very meticulously planned, sewn in as well. And even though, and I know from listening to you that it was the separators on the inside being sewn in, was also a big burden on your freight costs as well, because you can't like flat pack them as well. But yet you still kind of stuck to your principles and were like, this is the way it's going to be because this is what's most functional. So definitely something that impressed me for sure.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, that's all part of like that lean startup thing where we talked to customers and we found out what needed to change to make an incredible product. And we're like, all right, it's like these 3 or 4 things. It's organization, it's structure, it's durability, it's ventilation, it's a special spot for your shoes. We're like, cool, let's do that. And then we did it and we were like, all right, it's really hard to make. It's really expensive to make. It's a pain in the ass to ship, but is it plausible? Can we do it? What do we have to charge to make it work? And we're like, okay, we have to charge this to make it work. Will people buy it at that rate? And they did. And so we're like, okay, cool. We have a viable solution and a company that we could build around this.
Yeah, it's remarkable like that. It sounds like such a simple idea, but like from myself knowing how difficult it is to do this type of stuff, like it generally is really difficult to pull this type of stuff off when it's not just available as a white labeled bag on Alibaba. When you have to do it yourself, it's like it is extremely difficult to get it right. So congrats on that. I just wanted to talk, you kind of touched on it briefly about what your plans are for 2023. So hypothetical situation, Daniel Nugent, which is me, has just bought your bag like three or 4 weeks ago. Daniel is receiving a lot of emails. They're nice emails, fair play. How are you going to make Daniel spend more money over the next 12 months?
Yeah, great question. So that's partly where the lower priced product and expansion of the product line comes in, along with a little bit of merchandising. So we're looking at like ways to make some good products, whether that's a hat or maybe like some branded apparel, nothing too crazy there. Maybe it's like some extra things like a lacrosse ball for like your, working out stuff in your shoulder or things along those lines. And then we think about like product expansion with, a fanny pack or a sling bag or a shoulder bag, something along those lines. What we have right now, so it kind of depends on the customer, because what we have right now is surprisingly like a 12% or so returning customer rate. And what we're seeing is like someone will buy it and then they'll buy it for their friend or their father or their son or their spouse. Because a lot of times in these communities, you have kind of multiple people in a household that are all doing the same thing. And we're also seeing that across outside of CrossFit we also say, serious athletes or high performance athletes or professional athletes, even because we do have a lot of professional athletes across every single sport you've ever heard of, and some you haven't, that have the bag and that love the bag. And so we're seeing it beyond CrossFit, where it's like, literally get customer emails every day. It's like, I bought this for this person doing this thing. And like recently it was like, I bought this for my son. He's in baseball. This is going to help him keep all of his baseball stuff organized. I'm like, that's awesome. Super great. Like, this is a good solution for you. And so as we look at like expanding, the value of a customer, maybe lifetime value, if we want to consider it that, adding a few small products, where like now you have the big product, so you trust that we make a quality product. So, and we're going to keep doing that. And so there's opportunity to present some other like lower priced items, merchandise items. If you have a little bit of brand affinity at this point, there's the option to produce some like, lower priced functional products like the sling bag, shoulder bag, etc. And then for some people, it's, I'm going to go buy this for someone else in my family. And so we've already seen that start happening. That's kind of what the next 12 months or so looks like. There's a few other ways, like, whether it's fully new product or just like colorways of something. And it's like, maybe you bought the black because you were like, well, I don't really want the black, but it's all they have, so I'll get it. And then we come out with a colorway where you're like, oh, that's dope. I would actually love that. And now I know that I'm using this. We find this a lot too, where it's a multi-sport, multi-function bag. So we have people who are using it in travel already, but then we also have people who get it. And like, I'm this way too, because I participate in multiple sports: road biking, mountain biking, running, trail running, climbing, hiking, snowboarding, like all of these things. And I have the luxury of having multiple bags, mostly like just tons of extra samples around. And so I use them all, and I've got all of those different sports like stacked into a different bag. So I don't have to swap things in and out, and I can just like grab this bag, it's full of all that gear, and I can go run and do whatever I'm going to do. And so I think once you get the bag, that's kind of something we're seeing too, where people are finding multiple use cases. Like, okay, cool, that's my CrossFit bag, that's my gym bag, that's my travel bag, that's my mountain biking bag, or kind of something along those lines.
Have you had internal conflict about whether you, if you move into different segments of sport like rock climbing and stuff, and you produce a bag for that, does it remain under the Haven brand, or does it, I don't know, how do you think about that? If Haven, like you've talked so passionately about it being like inherently CrossFit, if Haven starts to release trail running and mountain climbing bags, does that dilute the brand or change the feeling around the brand? Have you asked yourself these questions?
Yeah, we have. And I think there's a right time. So we're called Haven Athletic for a reason, because athletic is related to everything. And when we think about like serious athletes and professional athletes, the reason why we have so many professional athletes that use our product, that love our product, it's not because we've approached them. They've all come to us organically. And it's because they think in the way of improving their lives by 1%. So if that's organizing my gear, if that's being a little more focused, if that's not forgetting things as I'm on my way to training, especially at that level where that can have a pretty serious impact. Day to day, it's really annoying for people like us to like forget something, lose something, have to dig around for something. But when it's your job, when you are a professional, it's more than just an annoyance. It's a really big roadblock in like your day and what you're doing and what you're going about with training and whatnot. And so I think at some point it makes sense to start expanding because of all of the natural, like organic reach we already have in all of these other sports. There's a few that are a little bit bigger than others. So I don't know exactly. We haven't nailed down, do we jump into boxing? Do we jump into running? Do we jump into whatever? But also some of those sports just kind of lend themselves to still being very connected to CrossFit. Like CrossFitters still do, it's a multimodal sport in and of itself. You're doing metabolic conditioning, you're doing Olympic lifting, you're doing regular weightlifting, you're doing running. And so we could do things kind of alongside those pretty easily without feeling like we've stepped away too far. But a lot of opportunity that we're kind of working through there. And also a lot of brands that have approached us and groups that have approached us in all of those groups where it's like, maybe it makes sense to kind of look at a sport that makes a lot of sense to us, but then also like partner with a brand in that sport that could help us really jump into that in a bigger way than we would be able to on our own.
Is that like a collab, like a co-branded thing, or how would that work when you talk about other brands?
Yeah, that's kind of how we're thinking of it right now, based on some of the groups that have reached out. Is um, a little bit of a collab. Like it would still be like our product, but we would launch it in coordination with that brand. Kind of Haven X, whatever the brand is.
Nice. That's very cool. Um, a big challenge for me as I was growing my eyewear brand a few years ago, is that expanding into new product lines. Like, say for example, I wanted to release like a brand new collection of sunglasses. I was also bootstrapped as well. I come from a marketing background and not a finance background. And in hindsight, now that I work for Wayflyer, I realized that I probably could have got things scaled a lot quicker, and I kind of would have moved a lot quicker if I just hadn't been so stubborn and not just been like, pinching every penny and going like, no, I can do it myself. So I just, I'm curious as to how you see, if you're bootstrapped to date so far, how you see this kind of like rapid expansion, both from a customer perspective and from a product perspective. How do you think that's gonna work, or do you have any ideas around that?
Yeah, I think it's going to work painfully, which is how it is right now. Just like trying to grow fast, like it's cool and it's really sexy to be on Twitter and be like, oh, we're growing it whatever X month over month, year over year. But then like in reality for e-commerce physical goods, like I always owe my factory 6 figures. Like I've just paid them 6 figures. I still owe them 6 figures. And in 2 months, I'm going to owe them another 6 figures. And like growing at the rate we're growing, which right now is about 5X year over year, we'll see if we can keep that up throughout the end of the year, because that would put us at about a 5 million run rate for this year. But it's painful and it's really hard. And so we look to companies like Wayflyer or other like interesting finance lending options. And I think it's kind of inherent in like the founder entrepreneurial journey is like, you just find a way to make it happen. And if at some point that is like a little too unsustainable for us to like keep growing at that rate because we just can't afford the inventory, then it's like, let's pull back a little bit. Let's fine tune some things, or let's figure out a way to make this work, or, whatever that is. Like, yeah, we're committed to figuring it out. Like that's what we've done over the last 6 years since we started this. And we're raising a small round right now. Like we have a handful of really cool people involved in that. And so maybe that's the unlock in the short term, but whatever it is, like we're just going to keep figuring it out.
So what you're saying is you're not one of those guys driving Lamborghinis in Dubai? Not yet, anyway.
No, I would love to be though. So if those guys could reach out to me and let me know how to do that, that would be cool.
I don't think they know how to do it either, to be honest.
Yeah.
Caleb, that was really interesting and inspirational, and just great to hear your story and all the enthusiasm you have for the future. It's a great product. And I wish you the best of luck. Thanks for coming on.
Awesome, Dan. Thanks for having me on. It was great.